broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, wonderful AfterBuzzers. Welcome to another amazing after show for House of Cards. I'm Pegah Rad. You can find me on Twitter at Pegah Rad. We are going to be covering chapters 33 and 34, episodes 7 and 8. I am here joined with the lovely...
Hi there, my name is Quinn Scillian. You guys can find me on Twitter at Quinn Scillian.
And I am Autumn Chiklis. You can find me on Twitter at Autumn Chiklis.
Ooh.
Surprise, surprise.
So episode 7, or chapter 33, starts out in a flashback. And it kind of messed with me a little bit, because Claire's hair is dark. Or was that a forward?
I'm sorry,
forward.
I think they wanted us to think that it was a flashback.
I did too. Originally, I'm like, oh my god, we're going to see the wedding. That's what her hair was.
But then he's really gray. He looks so old. So I was like, no, it must be. It must be.
Yeah, and then obviously the 1 month earlier.
Yeah.
Right. So they're renewing their vows. Nobody else is in there. Really intimate, awesome moment with them. And I got really happy because I'm like, they're going through so much right now. So it's good to see that they do reconcile and things get better. Mm-hmm. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I think at first I thought it was a publicity stunt. I wasn't really sure what was going on because we knew that they were in all this turmoil, and then her hair was dark. So I was like, this is gonna get explained pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting because originally when I first saw it, I thought it was a flashback as well, and then once it became clear that it wasn't, I was really interested. I had a similar thought about maybe it was a publicity stunt. But I was when I realized or thought it wasn't getting that vibe, I was curious as to why they decided to give away their reconciliation before the end of the episode. Because that seems like something that, you'd see them go through the toughest, which is yet to come, obviously, only to reconcile. But they gave that part away.
I agree. I think that I wasn't expecting Frank and Claire to make up so fast, and I think that maybe I didn't want them to.
Yeah,
so much of the season was leading up to their kind of fall apart that I think maybe by having them get back together so fast, it almost seemed like those first couple of episodes were kind of like voided a little bit.
I felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't think it's permanent though.
No, probably not, especially
like a
because
Band-Aid.
Yeah, because a lot of their reconciliation throughout the episode was really surface level.
Yeah.
So I can understand that we're going to probably have a little bit more problems here, but I definitely lowered the stakes a little bit. I already told you, Pegah, that I wasn't a fan of these 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to be like a total dark cloud over the entire show, but I was a little I was bummed by that. I could have gone on with a fight for a little longer.
I agree. I totally agree. So we see Claire and Frank. They're sitting at the breakfast table, and you see the headlines from the newspapers that it's like defiant first lady stands up to Petrov, and
interesting that Claire has become a little bit of an LGBT hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
Exactly.
Yeah, they had that whole discussion, her and Frank, where he mentions that people are calling you a hero, and she says, and other people aren't, or something like that.
Is that this conversation at breakfast?
Is it this conversation at breakfast, or is it a little later?
Well, I know that she says...
I believe it's there.
Yeah, I believe it's there too. And then she says, you gotta trust me that I'm going to get this peacekeeping resolution passed. I promise you. Please have faith in me. And he's like, okay, well, we'll see. And so this is the first time that we see the whole monk, what would you call it?
It's a cultural exchange with Tibet, and that's why the monks were in the White House. It was never really further explained other than that.
Yeah, they're going to be here for a month.
It was a device. It was a device to make a month pass by, and then obviously you had the whole it wasn't really explained because it really didn't need to be. It was just a device to like push all of these symbols forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like, this is the passage of a time of the month, or literally just a month. This is a symbol of temporary kind of the fleetingness of
ephemeral, ephemeral nature of beauty,
exactly, in life,
stuff.
and renewal with the ashes that we get to later. So it was literally just a device.
It's kind of so funny that Frank was like, "Who are they?" Like, he had no idea. Like, whatever.
What are they doing?
So we see that Remy and Seth are with Frank, and they're telling him that they are trying to get a bill passed that is going to prohibit them using FEMA funds. And
That the Republicans are trying to...
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And Frank's like, well, if they try to do it, I'm going to veto it. And if they try to do that, then I'm going to not let it pass. Then
I love
he
him. Everything Frank said in this whole scene was just like, duh. Like, there should have been like a duh after.
Duh,
like, if they pass it, I'll veto it. Duh. If it passes, I won't enforce it. Duh.
Yeah.
Absurd. But they come back they slam him down. Also, I think we were talking about this off screen, Mendoza, and the casual, just like, Mendoza's not here anymore.
He's gone, and his painting's
because
gone.
he had claimed paid speeches as income. That was the only explanation.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
They also said that they made some reference to something being in storage, and then he turned to the camera and said, like Mendoza. So, kind of a hint that he'll be coming back later. Kind of a actor had another gig.
Yeah. I thought it was like super weird because Mendoza has been kind of like a pretty big figure this season. Like almost someone that we've been supposed to be afraid of. So it was weird to see him kind of just like, oh, by the way, this really important person is not going to be important for a second.
So Claire and Frank, they have to take their portrait together. Now that portrait later gets painted and is hung up in the White House forever, right? So it's a big deal. And you see her getting ready. They're doing her makeup, and then she goes to Frank, and they're sitting there posing, and she's, just looking all gorgeous as she normally does. And she tells Frank that the whole African bloc provision. And it's like, what a way to dump that. Of course, it's like, that's what she normally does. There's a place and time. I don't know. She's cool with doing that.
At first, I think Kathy had told her that the Russians were behind it, and then I think later on it was revealed that they weren't.
Right, and didn't they say also that maybe Israel was behind it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it was. It ended up being Israel. It ended up being Israel, but that was
because they were going to give Zimbabwe aid.
Right, exactly.
And then later on, Frank gave more money, which then ended up, Israel backed out, right?
Oh, yeah, I think
Help me out here.
I just think that like Israel needed to feel like more comfortable with the entire thing.
Well, we later, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we later see Claire talking to the ambassador from Israel and just put her in her place. It was awesome.
Oh, that was awesome.
It was awesome.
Cocktail party.
Yeah, with the new brown hair, just being fierce. Though I'm biased to the blonde, I have to say. But anyway, I digress. I'm trying to remember exactly the circumstances surrounding why Israel was having...
Well,
okay, right here. I have Claire, peacekeeping treaty. These are my notes. Africans requiring command over the forces. No way Israel Palestine will get on board. Russians behind it?
Yes, which they weren't.
Perfectly said.
So, at least I've got good notes.
We'll get there later because it does develop later on.
Sure.
But we see that Frank touches Claire's shoulder and she flinches.
Yes.
And it's kind of like she's retracting from him. And he
Did you guys
obviously
actually see her flinch, though?
I didn't.
I rewound it to look, and it didn't look like she actually did. Because I kind of wanted to see, because they kept talking about it through the entire episode. So I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And you don't see anything. So unless it was like super subtle,
maybe it was just something he could feel, like a biological,
or it was psychological
reaction
on his part. Maybe she didn't flinch.
Maybe.
But I thought it was really interesting that the photographer was like, Frank, could you stand behind your wife, please?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that as well.
Smile a little more, please. Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, stand behind your wife. That
we get it,
right
photographer. We get what you're saying here.
And then later that night, he goes into the room and he says, "Why did you flinch?" And she's like, "You're making this up. I didn't. Like, what are you talking about?"
I guess the question is, do we think that she did? I mean, we already know that they're in a bad place as it is.
I think she did.
Does it matter?
Not ultimately. I'm just asking.
If he thinks she did and she called him out on it, that's enough of a problem. Whether or not she flinched, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, let us know.
Did she flinch? That's the question.
So then we see, and as you said, time's going by. The monks are going, more into their painting.
Yeah, we kind of had like the monks coming in and out throughout the episode just to be like, where are we at with this?
Which, by the way, what an incredible feat. That entire...
The patience.
It's so cool the way that they do that.
And I was thinking... I'll get to that later. Yeah, what was it exactly? Like shaving?
Well, I think that there's sand in there, and they kind of vibrate it so that just a little bit falls onto it. It's like the vibration of what they're doing just like makes it pour out.
Whenever people were standing next to it, I was like, is someone gonna blow on it?
By the way, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm watching that like, oh my god, if anyone walks by too fast, if anyone walks by too quickly, that entire thing is gone and we start a war with monks. Probably not.
And then we're back to Gaffney after this, right?
Yeah, yes. So they go back to Gaffney, and it's Frank meeting with Tom Yates after the renewing of the vows, and they go and see his first home that he has with Claire. And, here Tom is trying to figure more and more out about Frank because he's trying to write this book, but Frank is being a little, I don't want to say elusive. Dodgy, but elusive. He's not really giving him the juicy stuff that Tom's looking for.
He's giving him what he wants him to write.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very,
And Tom knows, and I think that at this point, Tom is really trying to write his best book. And then towards the end of the episode, he realizes he needs to write Frank's best book. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think that he just has to get on board with that.
Yeah. I don't know. Do we trust this guy? Do we trust Tom?
Yeah, I love Tom.
I love Tom.
Okay. I actually think that Tom is one of the characters we can trust because he doesn't work for the White House. Makes him. I mean, he is a writer, and he, some things were kind of developed here later in the episode that were a little bit weird. But at the end of the day, when it comes to what he's doing right now, what he's doing with Frank, I don't see a lot of red flags.
Yeah, and he says something like, you haven't been truthful to me. The only time you were is when we were at the White House, we were drinking whiskey that night, and you were starting to be a little more open. And he's like, why can't you be like that more?
Dude, the sexual tension.
You think there was?
Only because...
Wait, between who?
Between Tom and Frank.
What?
How did I not get that?
I didn't get that at all.
Only because, first of all, watch the scene again. Second of all, he talks about, I haven't been this drunk since I snuck into the library at the Sentinel. And
yes, I remember that.
Okay.
I definitely remember that.
I do.
I don't know. Maybe I'm making leaps and bounds here, but...
Maybe I just don't... I don't know. Maybe I don't want that to be true because I feel like that's a development that could just end up...
I don't know. I feel like I'm reading a lot into Frank's sexuality this season. I totally get that. But with everything going on with the LGBT thing, with Claire's side, and, all of this tension with gay rights. And
Tom and Kate have a thing now.
Yeah, but, I mean...
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying... I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm saying that,
that there was tension.
There's an intimacy. There's an intimacy there. I don't know whether or not it's a romantic one.
That's fair.
Okay, I see that.
That's absolutely fair. I agree with you there. I think there is definitely... a relationship being formed that I love seeing.
Me too.
Because it's one of the only relationships we see with Frank. He doesn't have any relationships outside of the office, really. Even his wife now. The only relationship we really saw was with Freddy outside of his world, of his political bubble. So even though this guy is technically working for him, it's still, there's something significantly less there's a less work-oriented than his relationships with other people, including his own wife.
It feels a little bit more like sweatpants and sneakers with Tom.
Yeah, it's chill.
Yeah.
They can be themselves.
Sure.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
And they're apparently laughing too loud when Claire comes out and says, keep it down, and that she doesn't feel comfortable having Tom in their private quarters, which I get. I would totally be with Claire on that. I don't need this essentially a stranger in my private area.
I feel like they tried to make her look like a buzzkill, but I was like, for sure. That, it is weird.
And I'm trying to sleep. I'm getting my beauty rest. You need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do, and I get this, is she did get snappy. She's like, excuse me, please leave. Now. She was just very...
I was sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. It was very passive-aggressive and or overtly aggressive, rather.
You guys, did we talk about Frank talking about his mom?
at Gaffney.
Yeah, has that come up yet? I thought that was really interesting.
No, tell me about that.
Because I'm always loving to hear snippets about Frank's past, and I think especially with season 1, that was like, gimme, because they were so restrictive about how much they let us know about him. And so I thought it was interesting. He was talking about his mom, who was a maid, and she was white, and so all the families were like, oh, we want to hire the white maid because she won't steal anything, but she did. She did, of course. Yeah, and he said that one time she stole this pair of like sapphire earrings or whatever, and she always pawned the stuff that she stole, but before she took them to the pawn shop, she wore them the whole night. She even slept in them. And Frank said that she wanted to know what it felt like to have real jewelry, even if it was only for a few hours. And I thought that was pretty elusive to how things are with Frank. I mean, I just think that, Frank is different in the way that he doesn't want to let go. He can't let go. He wants the glory forever. You know what I mean? And I just think that that's interesting, where coming from his kind of humble beginnings, and that's how his mother was, that she could have that and then kind of like let that go. Seeing as the entire episode has been like about this idea of like eternity and like, fleeting kind of joys and stuff like that.
Right.
I just thought that was really, really interesting that like Frank doesn't have that in his, like, he doesn't have that in his wheelhouse, that ability to like understand like letting things go. It just doesn't like, it doesn't compute.
That's a great point.
And also, coming from those humble beginnings, it's clear that Frank has always kind of wanted to go for the gold since day one, since we've met him, and obviously since his childhood, being raised in a family where the father was pretty much absent, and the mom was, stealing sapphire earrings to try to wear in the mirror. You will often see that trope of the kid who decides, like, I'm going to be so much better than my parents. You're all going to see this is who I'm going to become.
He's kind of dictator.
Yeah, the more we've, or at least to me, the more we've gotten to know about Frank's family, the more sense he has made as a person, and his personality, and his no bullshit, I'm getting what I want no matter what I have to do to get it mentality. That all seems to make sense to me.
Yeah. It absolutely does.
So we cut to Claire. She goes to New York, and she gets into her office, and she has the bouquet of flowers from John Pasternak with a note that said, "Love is eternal," which is so heartbreaking because Michael Corrigan's gone.
And he also, they were not that happy either, and
that whole thing was kind of. And it was weird that she was like, "How did he know that I like tulips?" And I was
How
like,
did he know?
I don't know. I was like, "Are we supposed to think more into that, or maybe not?"
Maybe there will be a reveal later. Maybe he'll come back.
He's like
I've been stalking you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Because then Frank mentions the tulips at the house. Yeah. So I'm like, is there a correlation there?
I thought so too.
There has to be. These writers are so specific.
Yeah.
I mentioned this a lot, but the writers are so specific. They're not superfluous. They don't. Like I said, if you blink in this show, you will miss a plot line.
Oh, yeah.
You'll miss a plot line. So I definitely think the tulips have something to do. It's just with the greater... Or they're going to come back. I think the tulips are going to come back.
Do we know what tulips even mean? Like,
oh, yeah.
Symbolically?
Yeah.
I used to.
I'd love to look that up.
Put it in the comments, guys.
Yeah. So she asks about where Ambassador Caspi is going to be. She's on a mission to talk to. She's the ambassador of Israel. Correct?
Yes.
So she's, tell me what her schedule is. I'll go to her. And it's like, oh well, she has a cocktail party tonight or whatever. And she's like, okay, I'm on it. Which builds up to what we see later on. And then we cut to Frank. Now, he's talking with he's in the conference room. He's saying that he wants to hit 20,000 jobs by the anniversary of the Social Security Act.
And I thought it was interesting that one of his cabinet members was like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, like, things with AmWorks are moving along pretty
good,
well.
and they're moving along.
Well, he's starting to get the support of Congress.
Yeah, he's got a couple of Republicans on his side. Did we already have the
NBC News
No,
thing?
we haven't had that
yet. So they... let's see. So, and he says if he wants to veto a bill, he wants it to be because it will kill the 50,000 jobs they created at that time. Like, if he's going to let this bill pass, I want them to see it, like, be painful right? Is that what we're grabbing from this? Like, they're creating 50,000 jobs. If I sign this, that's gone. Like, all of our work is done.
Have we talked about the hurricane yet?
Not yet. That's in the episode 8.
Okay.
But we will. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it now? We can.
No.
It doesn't come up at all in this episode?
That's what I'm wondering. Is I feel
like this hurricane was like the world's slowest moving hurricane.
I know.
I was like, oh my god, have years gone by and this thing still hasn't touched anywhere?
No, it's just politics move really, really, really fast.
I guess so.
And then Kathy takes the floor at the conference and mentions that it's being delayed because Israel got cold feet, and they're thinking that maybe they told Africa to sabotage the resolution so that they have a way out.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And then that's when we get the whole Israel's promised the HIV aid pack to Zimbabwe.
Yeah, and Frank says that he doesn't want to increase U.S. relief because he says Zimbabwean president is like a crook and he's just pocketing all that
and he's just going to be taking
it's like,
money.
why would I give money to this dictator, and totally against it.
Yeah, and Claire was like, well, we already account for that. We already know like a little bit of that's going to happen or whatever.
Right.
So, you know, she wasn't completely like. I don't think that, like, Claire went in there with, like, a terrible idea.
Yeah, but the fact that he snapped at her like that in front of everybody.
Oh, yeah, it was
personal.
It was so
personal.
And she even mentions later on, she's like, you singled me out. Like, that was so wrong of you. I'm like, I'm your wife. You shouldn't, attack me in front of everybody.
Especially because it wasn't her idea. It was hers and Kathy's idea.
Right.
You know
and she even says that. It's like me and Kathy's idea.
It wasn't exactly what he said. It was more about the way in which he said it.
Oh, yeah.
You should think before you bring that up.
Because
watch your tone.
Yeah, that's the thing is she wants to be treated as an equal in in the like scheme of where everyone is. She doesn't want to be treated as the wife or given special treatment, but at the same time she doesn't. It's different when it starts to become airing dirty laundry in public, especially in this context. And what was personal about it was just you don't snap at someone with that kind of venom unless you know them so intimately.
Yeah,
they're a best friend, their wife, or whatever.
We've seen Frank just like when Frank gets mad at someone, he just fires them. Like he doesn't yell. He's like very.
Even when he has yelled, there's something very different than yelling at someone because you didn't do your job and just being vicious and like spitting venom at someone for no particular reason and being super like not passive aggressive. It was pretty aggressive, but it was just unnecessary. It wasn't like she failed to do her job or came in with this terrible idea, and it was her and Kathy's, both, who we just failed to mention. So it was definitely personal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then they bring back their fight on the plane, and it's like, you said you should have never made me ambassador, and we said some things that we can't take back.
Yeah, this was kind of the moment when I was talking about being like the surface level kind of reconciliation, where it was kind of like they're having a conversation, and it's almost like they're finally talking about it because it felt like, why haven't we brought the fight back up yet? So it was like kind of nice to see it again. But I loved the line at the end of this scene where, Frank's smoking a cigarette and someone's going to come in to talk about AARP or something like that. And he's like, wait for the smoke to clear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like cigarette and,
kind
obviously,
of
the tension.
Yeah.
With Claire.
And she says, I can't believe we've become like everyone else. And it's like, yeah, I can't believe so either. It's terrible. So then Douglas Stamper, he's back in the mix. He meets up with Gavin at the diner. He gives her photos of who he thinks is Rachel Posner.
In Santa Fe.
Crossing the street. And she looked kind of creepy in that video, or in that picture.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
didn't she? I know, with her hood up.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, she almost looks like masculine and like mean.
Yes. So he wants more from Gavin before he promises a passport or a way out. He's like, I need an exact location.
Wants an exact
that
location.
was the deal.
It's so creepy to me.
And like Gavin is like, you're seeing all of my,
progress.
All my progress. I want to see some on your end, but that Doug doesn't want to give Gavin that passport until he's got an exact address, because Gavin would skip out on him for sure if he had a way out of the country.
Oh, for sure.
Because
Not even a question.
He doesn't want to be doing this anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
he
he's talking about like, I had to do some sick shit.
Yeah, he had to pretend like he had HIV and cry and make this girl feel so bad.
Yeah, but even to like hack into like all that stuff, I think it's like super illegal, and obviously all the horrible stuff he had to do with Lisa.
Yeah.
So, I think that like definitely Doug's just gonna keep holding that little passport over his head for.
Do you think he's gonna give it to him ultimately?
Good question. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, I could see him doing it.
Yeah,
'Cause
he sticks to his word.
And if Doug gets what he wants,
Yeah.
I don't see Doug being, like, vengeful. I mean, if he doesn't think he can use Gavin anymore, he'd give him the passport.
Right. I'm with you on that.
I agree with you. I'm just wondering if
If there's something else going on.
yes, that's the only thing about this show is there could easily be something that's slipping under the surface regarding him, because I mean he is bound to this country.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the kind of emotional turmoil Gavin's been going through. They've been giving him some reaction shots where you get to see kind of him digesting everything, and I wonder if he's not going to boil over.
I'm sure at a certain point he is, especially if he starts dealing with the frustration of not necessarily being able to get a specific address for this one girl who Doug is obsessing over. It's difficult, I assume. I'm not a mass hacker. I'm sure it could be done.
Well,
But, it's difficult to get someone's exact address if they do not want to be found.
also interesting that she's still in Santa Fe. I'm surprised she hasn't moved by now, but
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I was on the
she's still in
run,
Santa Fe, but probably.
I would be on the run. I wouldn't be in more.
because it's been a couple months since he first saw her, than from him looking and stuff later on. But I don't know.
But is she on the run, I guess, at this point? Or has she just moved out and now feels like she's secure?
Maybe, but that's a rookie move on her part.
Yeah, but she's also a rookie criminal, I
That's
think.
true. That's
Or at least
true.
She was a
to some
prostitute, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So she's not that rookie of a criminal, but in this sense,
In
yeah.
this
A different kind.
Witness
Yeah.
protection program sense.
So Stamper goes to rehab, and we see that his therapist is being extra flirty with him today. And
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah. We saw this coming.
she's
from
like,
a
"I'm
mile
going
away.
to Seattle. You want to come to my party on Thursday?" And
She's moving and I'm so bummed.
Why is she moving?
She's so good for him.
and also, why spend all this time on the relationship if she's just gonna go?
she has
so
nothing to
annoyed.
lose or whatever she said.
yeah, she had nothing to lose.
I mean, like, why even? This whole thing feels like so super soap opera-y to me. If she's leaving,
Right.
I don't understand that
understand,
at
yeah.
all.
I hope she doesn't, because first of all, she's good for him. I'm sorry, she's good for him.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he comes to the party, but he wants to leave automatically. He just doesn't want to stay. She's like, "No, you're not."
Didn't he look like 80 years old
looked
there
really
compared to everybody else?
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, this is like Dad coming to break up the party.
Yeah, and then he's the last one, cleaning up the recycling
It's like
the bottles.
so creepy.
and-
If it was me, I'd be like,
Oh, you can leave like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
But no, she's so into him.
Yeah, she's so into him.
Very much.
And they end up, bang, bang, boom. Bang, bang, booming. And
I said, Doug hooks up with therapist. LOL, sex therapy. That's what
I like
said.
it. And then so that whole thing is over, right? She leaves, blah, blah.
Well, in the bed the next day, he's talking to her about Rachel and says that, like, someone from my past reached out.
I just thought that was a lie.
That was so weird.
It is a lie, but, like, such a weird thing to say.
Very weird.
Okay, we can move
Like, I
on.
noticed you were sad.
Well, I
Like,
think it was just an excuse. Like, I think because it's the equivalent. He's not going to explain to her, like, well, the girl there's movement, there's traction on the girl that I'm stalking. So the closest thing that's acceptable socially is, I was contacted by someone that I
That's
once knew.
true.
So I think that's just like, all right, let's take this really screwed up situation. How do I make this socially acceptable? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like it was.
And then we see Frank make his speech on the
radio
radio
address, yeah.
about the Social Security Act, and he's saying, we got to give way to something that's stronger and younger, and this is AmWorks, and he's totally selling that. And then we go into the NBC News discussion where we see the two Republicans totally for it. I mean, they're so supportive of
Very
the
much.
AmWorks thing, and I was like, wow, that's great. Making some strides there. Then the FDR Memorial. Did you guys read the quotes that were up on the memorial?
Yes, I did, and I had them in my notes, which were on my
have them.
computer,
Well,
so
go
I
for
can't.
it, Pegah.
Okay, so the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little.
Cue monks.
Cue monks.
Cue the monks.
Yes. So what do we think about that quote?
AmWorks.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I just kept thinking about Freddy.
Straight up.
And also about his, his radio speech was like so aggressively critical of Social Security, and I
I
think,
was really knocking it.
yeah, really harsh. So I think that everything kind of felt like it was... I mean, everything is basically alluding to AmWorks being, like, a successful program, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, a touch ironic because here we have Frank Underwood talking about how... Or I guess it's alluded
Like kind of
in that
Robin
quote.
Hooding a little bit.
Well, that's what the, I guess, idea behind it is. But it's still Frank Underwood. The reason he's doing this also is to secure his legacy. So it's this kind of duality of the greatest good for the greatest number, if you will.
Yeah.
Versus the fact that he has been stepping on every single person's throat. He's a murderer. Let's not forget. Let us not forget that he is a multiple-time murderer now. This isn't like an accidental. This isn't
he's an intentional
like
murderer.
premeditative. That's some crazy stuff.
At the end of the day, here's a question. Here's a moral question for you.
Oh, my
At the end
favorite.
of the day, if AmWorks works and gets all these millions of people into jobs and into homes and all these people secure, was it like worth it to kill 2 people?
Okay,
Like,
now here's the thing.
Funny.
I'm talking obviously TV wise. This is TV.
Yes, of course.
So we get to kind of like stretch our morals a little bit on all of
Sure.
this. So can we forgive Frank for killing 2 people if those things led up to this program being like this greatest good for the greatest number of people?
Here's why I will say no. Because to me, intention is incredibly important. And what I find ironic about this whole ordeal is the fact that he's preaching about putting all of these Americans to work and helping as many Americans as he can, when really the person that Frank Underwood serves more than anyone is himself. To an extent, that is abnormal. Most people put themselves first, but he puts himself first at a price, 2 murders and however many lives ruined. That is, the stakes are high. When you talk about basic numbers, like, yes, obviously the greatest good for the greatest number, but his intention and the way that he was able to come into office, and what he has since done, and for what reasons, I would say no, it is not a morally acceptable.
But don't you think that everybody is still rooting? I mean,
I'm still rooting for Frank. I love Frank.
I
so
love
it's
Frank.
like we've already forgiven him for those murders.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
So at this point, like, I think that, yeah, if Frank ends this series a hero because of AmWorks, like, okay.
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 We're done.
No, I understand. From an audience perspective.
That's I'm only talking from an audience perspective.
Well, then, yeah, Frank wins all the time.
Because people on TV die all the time. Where we're just like, God, can't he just die? You know what I mean?
Oh, I thought you meant like proposing the moral question in general. But as television is
television
concerned,
goes.
as an audience member, no, Frank and Claire forever. They have to win everything,
We're rooting.
even though we know that they won't because it's
Yeah.
House of Cards. But yeah, absolutely.
And so Frank, he comes home from the memorial and he says, you know what I noticed? Eleanor was standing on one side, Franklin was on one side, and there was a wall between them. And it's kind of, symbolic to where they are in their relationship. There's a wall between them. And she mentions that, the monks have been here for a month and we haven't even talked about this. Like, I wish you were there to witness this with me. I was there watching it for an hour and, like, you weren't there to talk about it. And
Yeah, wasn't it interesting how moved Claire was by the monks?
Yeah.
I thought it was so. I just remember I was like watching her watch them, like, take their time. Every movement is so deliberate and so calculated and so, cherished. And I was just thinking about how opposite Claire has been acting and how she's been lashing out and how she's been so kind of she's just been quick to act. And I was just think that she kind of had this like come down moment when she was watching them.
Yeah, the shot was so up close, like her and then like the monk too.
I thought she was gonna sneeze or something.
That'd be so funny. And then Frank says, "We got to do something."
Yeah.
like he wants to fix this, which is nice to hear. Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say something. Let's see. She gets her hair colored.
Yeah.
Is this a symbol of her changing? What do we think about that? Am I looking too deep into it?
No, it absolutely is.
Okay.
I mean, if there wasn't anything to it, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
I think it was. I mean, she even says, "I want it to be the way it was when I met Frank. So I think, and we have the whole like renewal vibe going on because of the monks and the making this incredibly intricate structure and then wiping it all out to throw it into the river in a pile of sand.
Yeah.
So you have this really, you have this theme going on, and I think her dyeing her hair, frankly, is just another extension of that kind of renewal. And
also, her having brown hair helped me throughout these because the episode was going all over. So when she had the brown hair, things with her and Frank were good. When she had the brown hair and they were both wearing white and everything, and then when she had the blonde hair, they still had tension. So I was like, okay, that's how I can figure out like when when they're happy with each other and when they're like not.
Yeah, because it was all over.
Yeah,
but I liked how. Sorry, go ahead. There was a juxtaposition of the monks cleaning up the sand, and then it would cut to their vows, and then it would cut to them dumping it into the river, and then it cut to their vows. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's all about the, beginning again. The renewal of vows, the taking, and what I also found kind of interesting is the fact that they had made this incredibly intricate and well thought out, not painting, but sand, this shrine mural type thing. It took a month of incredible work, and then just to all right, and then dump it in the river. So with the whole renewal thing, in a way, that's kind of what Claire and Frank have been doing. They finally got to the White House, which it took an incredible amount of work, incredibly detailed. The amount that they had to work to get to that place has, obviously, we've seen it, been incredible. And now they're kind of pressing the restart button for them. So it's kind of a mirroring as well as a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I liked it.
All that good stuff.
Then we go to Frank again and Gaffney. He's talking to Tom, and Tom...
This is when they're outside the house, I know.
And Tom thinks that Frank is wasting his time, and that he actually tells him that his friend wrote half of his first book, which that shocked me.
Me
I was
too.
Like, what? And then he ended up writing the second half.
And he said on his deathbed that the friend had asked him to burn it.
And he didn't.
Or something.
I can't believe
that. But it's
that.
weird, because didn't the friend commit suicide?
I don't remember.
Interesting that there was a deathbed involved if there was a suicide.
Wait, the friend committed suicide?
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said at the beginning when they were on Air Force One. He said that his friend had committed suicide, but he didn't want to put suicide in the book because that's a selfish way to die.
You're absolutely right.
So that was interesting. Is like his friend was on his deathbed, and then is this the same friend? Like,
is it the same friend, or alternatively, he's just lying more? But it's one of the two.
Deathbed. Like, did you kill your friend?
Oh.
That's weird.
No, I doubt it. But like, yeah, I just thought that was really, really interesting. But to be honest, it didn't give me a whole lot of feelings about Tom Yates in any different. I don't see him in a different light because he was never like a rainbows and butterflies kind of guy to begin with.
Yeah.
I always knew he was kind of dark, and he probably had like, some past histories and stuff like that. So I don't know, like for some reason, like I'm still pretty on board with this guy.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
Tom's awesome.
And we see that Kate Baldwin has a new obsession because she's trying to get something out of him.
I know.
She wants.
I was shipping them from Air Force One. I was shipping them. I'm like, all right.
Shipping. I like it. And then the last kind of part of this episode is when Claire goes to the cocktail party to confront Ambassador Caspi.
Yes.
And she just gets in there, pulls her aside real quick and says, look, I know what you're doing. My husband actually agreed to give $80 million, and that's way more than what you guys are giving. And so Zimbabwe's now canceling the provision. And so good luck.
So ha.
Yeah, so ha.
She pulled a Frank, for sure.
She did, and Israel really didn't say much. She was upset, but
there's nothing she could say. At a certain point, know when to cut your losses. I mean, I think there are a few things. I think she is kind of digesting the fact that Claire has won. There's nothing that she can say we have outmoneyed you. Most of the time in life, if someone says we have outmoneyed you, you kind of go, well, okay, what can I do? I guess I have been out what is most important, right? But all joking aside, what could she have said? Claire backed her into a corner, quite literally, and told her what was happening very firmly and said good day and left, and I think she's talked.
And I loved how she stood up for Frank. You know,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
the responsibilities that he bears on a daily basis. You go and you point your gun and somebody tells you to shoot somebody, but you couldn't stand a day bearing what Frank has to do.
Yeah. And I'm honestly, I haven't seen the rest of the season, so I don't know. But if this whole peace treaty resolution thing is settled here and now, I will be so happy.
You'd be happy. You're done with it.
I'm so over it. Oh my God. I mean, it was interesting for a while, and then after a while, it was just felt like so much back and forth that it just kind of started to feel like a little bit like just another reason to get Frank and just to have tension between Frank and Claire, and I was just like so ready for it to be over.
Side note, the whole Claire talking about how brave her husband is speech. What was also nice is it's kind of a callback to their original argument, where she basically said that
You're a coward.
You're a coward. And for her to kind of, in a way, she's redeeming herself to Frank without Frank being there, because the very thing that upset him so much, which obviously was the whole "you made me" thing, but also you're a coward and Michael was braver than you could ever be, to turn around and say, you don't understand how brave my husband is. These are the responsibilities that he is in charge of, and you could not stand a day under the weight of what he deals with. That was kind of a moment where I knew, all right, they're fine. For better or for worse, they are fine now.
They're fine. They're good. And then she gets home, and there's the photo of the...
That was damn cute.
Well, you know, Frank put it on her bed of the monk painting. I call it a painting. I know that's not the proper word. Sand...
That one was a photograph,
beautiful
so we can
thing.
just call it that.
Okay. And there's a note, and it said, "Nothing is forever except us."
And addressed to my love. I was
Yeah.
dying. It was
It's
so
like,
cute.
he's trying, she's trying, it's all good.
You guys are such saps.
We
I am.
are, we
I'm
really
such
are.
I'm such a sap. I'm the most cynical
Yeah.
sap you will ever meet.
I mean, I did think it was a nice ending, but this is by far my least favorite episode of the
Yeah,
season.
I
It was
agree.
That's fair.
It was
Yeah.
all over the place. There was so much information coming at once. I kept having to rewind and just having to listen to conversations over again, and that's never a good sign if, like, you know, they're not catching me enough to keep me like super enwrapped.
Yeah, I agree.
And then this whole thing with these really sporadic flash forwards and flashbacks. It felt like this episode was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't my favorite.
I was trying to figure out what the significance of, and I said this earlier, why they would structure it that way. Why they would make it a flash forward, flashback situation.
Yeah.
Like what, because I keep saying this, the writers are so damn specific and good. What was the purpose? What were they trying, like what device was that? If you're coming from like a cinematic standpoint.
Having some sound problems. Sorry.
Yeah, I hear some buzzing going. So before we get into episode 8, just want to remind you guys to go onto iTunes and rate the show 5 stars, comment, check out all the other shows that we have for you guys here at AfterBuzz TV. There are so many, I can't even keep up. And also go onto youtube.com/AfterBuzz TV and subscribe so that you can catch up with all of the videos that we have on there as well. Comment and interact with us. We'd really love that. Let's get into episode 8. We don't have too much time, so we'll kind of have to go through this one kind of quickly. But
Let's do it.
It starts out with the hurricane. Yes.
Yes, and also I just want to talk about the device used from here. As much as I didn't understand.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. As much as I didn't understand the what they were doing with the Claire and Frank flashbacks or flash forward, flashback kind of situation. Oh, honey. I absolutely adored what they did with the Tom and Kate juxtaposition, where you have this theme of propaganda, because you have Tom who's writing his propaganda book about Frank, and he's he's giving off these voiceovers about how he was the whole swimming story. So you have him writing his book, juxtaposed to Kate writing her opinion column about how he's a tyrant.
I loved that.
I love how they had two very different kinds of propaganda, basically, being spoken about Frank throughout this episode, almost as a narrative, kind of encompassing everything that he did. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and she even referred to him as a hurricane.
Yeah.
He was
the
a
whole
hurricane
metaphor.
coming through.
The metaphor was beating us over the head, like, in fact, a hurricane might have done.
And they need $8 billion for this hurricane preparation. And
Hurricane faith.
Yes.
The irony is not lost.
Yes. And they know that, it's a huge risk if they don't have this money. And Frank meets with Bob and Henry Mitchell, which is the guy who replaces Mendoza. And they are saying that he says he wants the disaster relief fund replenished. And it's like, you can't just ask us to put money in the piggy bank and then you break it and then you want more. Like, come on, where are we supposed to get this money from?
Right.
But they're willing to give him at least $10 million.
Which was more than Frank was expecting anyway.
Yeah. So better be happy with that.
He was like, oh, okay, I guess.
And then they are urging him to sign the law that says that they can't use the FEMA money anymore
want him
for
to sign the bill.
political purposes.
Yeah, and they were saying that it would pass anyway, even without a veto, that this bill would pass, right?
Yeah. They were like threatening, like, well, this is going to pass whether you like it or not.
But if he does it, the sooner the better, because, haste is,
Important so that when this hurricane hits, you actually have the funds to be able to...
time is of the essence.
yeah, like, do you want all these deaths on your hands if it does hit and we're not prepared?
You need to have a quick response, and without the proper funding, you're not going to be able to have nearly the response that is necessary to help all of these people.
Right. Seth comes in with a bunch of files from the, I guess he has case studies or case files on people enrolled in AmWorks. And he's like, I think you need to take a look at this one. And it's Freddy's. And he's like, what? He's washing dishes? Like, he made the best ribs in the world and now he's washing dishes? Like, so he goes and he has Meacham go and bring him into the White House, and he's like, listen, if you want a job in the kitchen, it's here for you. You get $3,000 a month. You get to, do what you love. And he's like, actually, I want to work outside. Do you have anything outside? He's like, sure, like whatever you want. I thought that was really
Thank goodness,
cool.
Freddy. I was so worried
Me too.
that Freddy was just going to be gone forever, and my heart broke, because I love Freddy. And I loved their
and that
relationship,
actor's insanely
too.
good.
Oh my god,
Can't remember
yes.
his name right now, but he's awesome.
He's great.
A vocal fry has never sounded so wonderful. And I mean, I'm not even being sarcastic. It's beautiful. I love him.
No, yeah, he's awesome.
And I love how Freddy brings his grandson, and he's like, you could be president one day. And then
That
after
whole
he
scene,
leaves,
that whole scene.
my
is
heart broke.
So sweet, where he's like, you can have dreams just as long as they're not fantasies, and like this
Yeah.
whole thing.
Well, and it's heartbreaking, because what he says has some validity, and it's not something that people talk about often. He has his whole thing about, all these basketball players talk about, like, you could be anyone or say anything, but if they weren't born 7 feet tall, then what would they have? And
Most
obviously,
of them can't read a book or something.
yeah, most of them
like
can't even read a book. It's something that people don't really talk about, and something that I think is pretty significant in the context of the show, which is how much does wanting it matter versus having the opportunity and the skill and the right stars aligning for you. Like, you can want something. There are people who want more than anyone, but if they don't have luck and opportunity and drive and all of these other things, the stars have to align for someone to make it big in that way. So, I don't know, it was Freddy bringing the real.
Freddy
dropping the reel. It was awesome.
Then we see the meeting with the cabinet members, and Frank goes in and says, okay, guys, raise your hand if you want me to sign this bill. And everybody's looking at each other like,
And
are
Claire's
you
just
going
like,
to do it?
Go for it.
Yeah,
I knew she was going to.
Exactly.
Surprise, surprise.
And at first, you're thinking, does she really not want him to, or want him to? But then you learn afterwards that she did it just so that other people felt comfortable.
Yeah.
What a team player. And then Dunbar, we see her. Okay, so the whole thing with her and Jackie Sharp. Now, she's saying that she wants to suspend her campaign because it's a time of,
Which, yeah, it's during a time of disaster or whatever. Everything Dunbar says is just like, you just trust her. You know what I mean? She really does seem like she's doing everything on the up and up. She's doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because I think they were trying to allude to it being like some kind of campaign tactic or, a way to get like the do-gooder vote.
Everything Dunbar does, I do think, is on the up and up. Stamper, on the other hand, not so much.
Down and down.
No, so I'm sure that's gonna come to fruition. But when she was having that conversation with Jackie, I was like, Yeah, Jackie, you should absolutely suspend your campamping. Like, without question.
She brought up the kids, too. It's like a sucker punch.
That was a sucker
hard,
punch.
you know.
Do you have kids? Well,
Jackie is so cold. It's crazy.
yeah, and
because I was saying, I wrote this down. I was like, what Dunbar was asking Jackie to do was when suspending her campaign was she was just asking her to be motherly. You know what I mean? When she's bringing up the children.
Yeah, I was thinking, if we didn't have these resources, what would we do? You know, we're privileged, but think about everybody else.
Yeah, well, the thing about Jackie is, I can't believe I'm going to defend Jackie Sharp for any amount of time, but she's a shark. Sorry, I mixed those two things up. But she's a total shark, and she's very similar to Frank. We've made that parallel before. The reason we don't love her in the same way we love Frank is because obviously Frank is our hero and we have come to accept him for all of his coldness, and he's a little more charismatic. But the thing about Jackie is we know this about her, she endgames. She has goals, she has her own dreams, and she will do whatever it takes to get them. So she's definitely cold, but I think that stems from being a woman in the industry that she is in, just doing what she feels is right. I don't necessarily think it has to be that way, because look at Dunbar. She's freaking awesome. And Kathy.
Yeah.
I love Kathy.
Who's so warm.
I love Kathy.
I just want her to be my grandma. She's the cutest.
Yeah.
She's cute.
But then again, I mean, like, then we're talking about kind of the way women go about things. I mean, then you just compare Jackie to Claire. They're super, super similar.
Totally.
And I don't think either way is necessarily the right way.
No.
But it does make it easier to sympathize with Dunbar.
Right. Now we see Stamper calling Seth, and
Oh
he's
my
like,
goodness.
listen, Dunbar and Jackie are both going to suspend their campaigns, but make sure you tell Frank that I said it. Like, he just wants to get good with Frank and make sure he knows that, he's looking out for him. Like, he's doing his sneaky
And
work.
that was a reveal, because up until this point, I wasn't sure what
too.
his play was. And, I mean, I'm still not 100% sure.
I still think he's biding his time, truly. I think he's kind of playing both sides, and he's just going to kind of
see what's more beneficial.
See what ends up winning in the end.
No, I totally agree with you. I don't think that it's necessarily
It's not black and white.
No, absolutely not. It's just the first time that we see he has any intention of keeping contact with Frank in this way.
And he's also, I mean, speaking of Doug, I just wanted to touch on the fact that he's still watching the Santa Fe cam.
He's so obsessed. It's ridiculous.
I hate it.
It's so creepy.
much.
It's just on. He's like ironing. It's on. He's laying in the bed. It's on.
It almost seems like everything's going pretty well with him except for this one thing.
Except for this one massive obsession with a woman who is just not that into.
Not that into. Let it go.
You should rent that movie.
So Remy goes to talk to Frank, and they get a little heated here, which we haven't seen that happen in a while, because Remy's always his, right-hand man.
Yeah.
And he's like, how did you not know that Jackie was going to suspend, And he's like, well, just because I dated her doesn't mean I know her every move. And he's like, well, you should. And, then the whole...
Why was Frank upset about this? Just because he didn't know, or because he really didn't want her to suspend the campaign?
I think it's both. I think it's one that Jackie's operating on her own without discussing the rest of the team, and he does not trust her in that way.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. So I think it's twofold. I think, one, he does not want her to suspend the campaign because he is campaigning, and two, the fact that she is operating on her own means that she might not be able to be trusted even more so than he originally thought.
Yeah, I guess. But I think when it comes to Jackie, I think she is most trustworthy when she's given a little bit of slack. And I think when Frank tries to hold the reins a little too tight on her, that's when she kind of starts to... Then when she acts out. And she,
of course.
Yeah,
I just think that's the reason he reacted in the way that he did, is because he doesn't know what that conversation was about, really. And the fact that he gets this information, like, wait, they're already meeting, like, what are they doing? It's more of a gut reaction of, I could be losing my VP, what's going on here?
I guess I just thought it was interesting because he's already contemplating cutting his FEMA funds for hurricane relief. So it was just interesting to me that he was getting so mad at her for suspending her campaign so they can focus on hurricane relief.
Yeah.
I thought,
So he calls Jackie and was like, I know what you did. Like, don't try to go around me. I know exactly what happened. And she just, like, stops chewing her meal. And he's like, well, I hope he said no. She's like, actually, I said yes, and I am going to stop. And, she just kind of takes the reins on that decision, I guess. And then let's see, we jump forward to Kate Baldwin. She's submitting her stories, but the guy saying it's so one-sided, and we really need a quote from the White House or somebody around the White House.
Which, by the way, was a little terrifying to me that you can publish it as an article if you just get one quote.
I know.
It's crazy how much clout that Kate must have at the Tribune, because she was writing something that wasn't even in her. It wasn't even in her kind of like, jurisdiction in terms of the newspaper. She wrote a column, and she's usually a journalist or whatever.
And she's like, I don't mind it being a column.
Make it a column. And he's like, well, if we make it a column, then you can't be a reporter anymore. Because, because your bias is going to be too obvious. Mm-hmm. And then, like, she was like, that's fine with me. And he's like, well, okay. I just thought that was so interesting that she's obviously, like, so high up here.
Yeah, and she just maybe felt so strongly about what she was writing about.
Yeah. And she mentions the fact that people know my bias anyway, so why does it matter?
What point is it? Yeah.
So then that's when we see her kind of trying to get close to Tom, right?
Tom.
She goes and they have like a drink at the bar.
I wrote this, Tom and Kate plus 8 drinks.
Oh my God, 8 drinks.
That's funny.
I was pretty proud of that one.
That's a good one.
Thank you very much.
And then we see Tom and Frank talking about the book. And there's nothing written about AmWorks. And Frank's like, well, what the heck? This book is supposed to be about AmWorks. What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah. I think they were trying to set it up, like, making us wonder if maybe Tom is pulling a fast one on Frank.
Yeah.
Well, Seth says that later.
Oh, does he?
Well, doesn't... Am I losing my mind? Doesn't
No, you're good. You probably don't.
No. Well, Seth basically says to Tom, don't try anything.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, that's right. Okay.
That's right. You called him something foolish.
Yeah.
You called him foolish, and I wouldn't work for anybody that's foolish.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, I think we were talking about earlier, I think Kate said something about being like, he's a gorgeous writer. You know what I mean? So I think that we just need to trust Tom to just like to just do this, because he's going to do it the way he's going to do it.
But is he a gorgeous writer, or is his friend a gorgeous writer?
Well, he's written a couple things.
Yeah, we read him.
Yeah.
He's obviously.
We heard him read whatever he wrote, and that was
in his second, his most recent book.
He's definitely a talented writer. The only reason I bring it up is because there was that moment where we're kind of given the impression that his first book was the most important, and then people fought over his first book.
The ending of the first book was most important, I think, and he wrote the ending.
Okay, well then, then we're fine. You blink.
You blink,
oh, never mind. That was in the last episode.
So Claire comes in to find Frank sitting in the dark. He's upset. Oh, he finally signs the bill. So he signs the bill. Done. Okay, I did it. He's upset, sitting in the dark. He's talking, or he's probably thinking it over in his head. And Claire comes in and says, the Russians actually want to send 300 troops to the peacekeeping resolution because they feel isolated. So it worked, and yay, it's great. Okay, we're done with that.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
And also big win for the Underwoods. And it was on Claire's terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was cool that Frank was like, at least, if nothing else, at least we'll have one good thing that came out of this administration. So thank you very much, Claire.
Yes. You go, girl. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when the hurricane hits. Morning comes. He's still in the same spot, still in his, shirt. And she says the hurricane turned. And did you guys see that coming?
Of course I saw it coming. I knew the second he signed that bill. I knew even before he signed that bill that hurricane was not going to land. Huh. It would have been too obvious if it had.
Right.
Especially with all this, with all the money at stake. I mean, it definitely makes the most sense for it not to have. But it just, talk about lowering the stakes. Like I said in the last episode with Claire and Frank's fight getting resolved, with this episode with the hurricane not hitting, it's like nothing happened. Nothing happened, and at the end of it all, we're pretty much back where we started. And
that's the thing is, I'm waiting for things to build. Because normally what ends up happening with House of Cards is they build the House of Cards, and you're waiting, like, when's it going to go, when's it going to break? Mm-hmm. But they're quick to... Normally, in a lot of these episodes, I feel like they're being quick to resolve. Mm-hmm. A lot of these issues. The thing about this now, though, and I'm guessing, I'm wondering how they're going to go about it, is now you have a law, because he signed the bill, so it's been passed into law. And I guess we are kind of back to where we started, because now he announces to Tom, I'm going to run for 2016. So I guess now it just becomes about his campaign.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, but
I just feel like...
Amworks will come back. I think they've spent way too much time on it.
And also he's proven to the American people that it works.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like after a whole season... I'm just coughing over here. After a whole season of so much tension, to have 2 whole episodes smack dab in the middle of the season with 0 to, none tension, no tension at all.
Exactly.
I feel like we wasted so much time. We're about the stupid hurricane.
Yeah, I wish I was a little bit more on the edge of my seat and invested. And I agree. These 2 weren't my favorite. Still good. I mean, it's House of Cards, but just not my favorite.
Yeah.
I feel like
I love Tom and Kate though.
I do love Tom and Kate.
You like that?
Yeah.
I love that, and it's gonna get so interesting because they're on the exact opposite sides.
I know.
It's gonna get
we'll
real
see that.
dirty. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But the thing about House of Cards, I think it does this a lot, where there'll be 2 episodes randomly in a season, 2 or 3 episodes where you feel like the energy's lulling a little bit, and that's normally the sign that things are going to kick up and become insane.
I hope so.
And all of the exposition and kind of the weaving of the webs that have been brought to you by in previous episodes
Brought to you by
all of the rest of these episodes kind of pay off.
Yeah, and I'm really into everything that happened with Freddy. I love how big of a kind of moral compass Freddy is for Frank, and I think that I think it's so cool that he's back because he really does. He really puts Frank. Frank has so much guilt over everything that went down there, and I think it's really nice to have him back just as kind of a tether to Frank's emotional time.
You get a glimpse of his heart. Oh,
Plus,
he
I
has
just love
one.
Freddy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
keep going.
Exactly. So
Is
a
that
vote for Frank Underwood is a vote for America Works.
There we go. That is our 2 episodes. Sorry for going through the last one a bit fast, but I'm pretty sure we covered everything, right? Yeah. All right. You can find me on Twitter at Pegah Rad. Where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Quinn Scillian. That's Scillian. You can find me on Instagram at Quinstagram. And if you want to see me do silly things, you can find me on Vine at the Quinn Bee.
And I am Autumn Chiklis, and I am not quite as creative as this lovely lady here, but I am consistent at Autumn Chiklis both on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.